Me too.
The other time I just come from the doctors, just got out of the cab. So we helped her out and up. And we stayed around like how long, because I always got to meet her. Yes. So it all came back to me.
Well, and you remember it.
Still pictures of her apartment on the door. Yeah, yeah. That's the first one.
Which, where is child?
I know the normal. See that?
the ribbons that we've attached to your clothing are treated as part of the clothing. As we begin, we make a tear on these ribbons, which indicates that we lose somebody that we love, the tear is created in the fabric of our lives. We do this standing together because that gives us the strength to bind up tear. And the other side of the heart, in which we accept what's happening, what has happened, and our giving commitments to tradition and faith. So, recite with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. We learn in the book of Job, Adonai natan v'Adonai latach, Yehushin Adonai levarach, the Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. And still we thank God, we bless God for the time that we've shared over the years.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Tirachem av avanim, richam Adonai al yireav. As a parent has compassion for children, so God has compassion for us. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are but dust. And yet, Adonai's compassion is everlasting, and God's kindness to children's children endures age after age, unchanging. We always begin this service with Psalms, the oldest prayers that we have going all the way back to the time of the Bible. And in that way, we're going to link Lili's life to 3,000 years of Jewish tradition, the people Israel, and the eternity of God. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? That is the question with which the psalm begins, and the rest of the psalm offers an answer. The source of my help is the Lord, creator of heaven and earth. He will not let you falter. Your guardian does not slumber. Surely the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. He's at your right hand to protect you. The Lord, your keeper, gives shelter. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. The Lord will preserve your soul. He will guard your going and coming from this time forth and forever. Mizmor David, another of the Psalms of David. Adonai ilo echsar bino tedeshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yeshovet. Yancheni b'maglei tzedek l'man shemo, gam kelech b'geit zalmavet lo irara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha mishantecha hemi anachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai dishanta b'shem enoshi, koside vaya. Ach tov ha'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. Those are the Hebrew words of the psalm we know so well from settings such as this. Psalm 23, we sometimes call it the Shepherd Psalm. Many of you, I'm sure, know it from memory. Recite with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This Shabbat, yesterday in the synagogue, we began our readings from the book of Numbers, the fourth book of the Torah. But it's really from the very first book of Torah, the biblical book of beginnings, Breshit, Genesis, that we learn not only of the beginnings of life, but also of life's end. And there we see that at the time of the passing of the patriarchs and the matriarchs of our people, it's members of the family who come forward to speak words of memory, words of eulogy. So in keeping with what is truly an ancient tradition, we're going to hear today from Neil.
Thank you, Rabbi. I was actually hoping you would skip this part. Thank you all for being here. I just rather turn this more of a celebration of her life than of her death. She was a one of a kind. She was a wonderful mother, very caring, loving, strong convictions. I think her strongest pride in her life was helping establish the nation of Israel. And it's kind of ironic how Israel right now is battling it out with their neighboring enemies, and as they did 73 years ago when they were first there. There's so much to say. I could say. I'm just grateful to have her in my life. I'm grateful. I'm sincerely grateful that both her and my father were here for as long as they had been, and they stayed healthy and focused on, continuing to live on. They were fighters from those in their DNA. They wouldn't have been here if they weren't. So I know she missed my dad terribly and has been wanting to join him ever since he left. And now they're together again, along with my brother, her family, that those who were killed and those that died before her. And I don't know, I really do want to thank obviously the family for being here. I know there are friends out there that will be most likely watching this, and other family members. But I definitely want to thank the Jewish Family Services for everything they've done, and Rivka and Susan and Michael, and you guys have just been helped make the last few years more tolerable. My intent a month ago was to come here just to visit, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew that I thought that it might turn into more than that, and it has. So I'm very appreciative and grateful that I was here during the last few days, and right at the foot of her bed, working away on a Zoom call with a group of people, trying to keep myself focused in, work and whatnot. But she just, I can tell you, she went completely silently, peacefully, and one minute she was there, next minute she was there. So thank you. Thanks, Ima. Thanks, Alma. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nima. I know how difficult that is. I already noted that yesterday at Shabbat services we began our readings from the book of Numbers. The book takes its title from a census with which it begins. Numbers, of course, can tell a story of a people and of an individual. Lili Paul was 93 years old. She was born in Regina, Hungary in 1928, one of 13 siblings, not all of whom survived childhood. Lili met and married Emil Paul in 1947. They made a marriage of 64 years. There are 3 children. Rita, married to Ed. David, who was married to Twyla, both of them now deceased. Neil, married to Sherry. 2 grandchildren, Todd, and Katie, married to John. 1 great-grandchild, Parker. Numbers do indeed tell a story. But in reflecting on the life of Lili Paul, there is one number that leaps out. A23260. The number that was tattooed on Lili's arm at Auschwitz. And the history that goes with that number is extraordinary. I already noted that Lili was born in a small town in Hungary. When she was 7, rising anti-Semitism led the family to flee their home. They went in the night by a wagon drawn by cows, not by horses, because horse hooves might make more noise. And eventually they made their way to Budapest. But as the Nazi Iron Cross of Hungary became ever harsher in its treatment of Jews, Lili's family was sent to a concentration camp, to a ghetto first, and then the concentration camp, Auschwitz. Neil, you explained that your mom did what you refer to as 2 tours in Auschwitz, interrupted by a period of forced labor. She went in at age 16, came out at age 18. Only 4 of her brothers and sisters survived. Numbers tell a story, but not the whole story. Her sister Henny wrote a book about their experience titled To Hell and Back. When Auschwitz was liberated, Lili made her way across Europe to a DP camp in Ladispoli, which is near Rome. Sherry recalls Lili recounting some of the journey, which included climbing through the mountains of Austria. The difficulty of that was compounded by a back injury she had sustained when she was kicked by a guard at the forced labor camp. That would later require her being in a full body cast. But she made it, and there in the DP camp, she met Emma. Now I want to just read a very short passage from Emma's manuscript memoir. I was in Italy awaiting a ship for Palestine. Some of us were playing soccer. I saw a young lady watching from the sidelines. I kicked the ball to her. She kicked it back. They were married 2 weeks later and sailed for Palestine that fall. But they didn't get to disembark in Haifa. Their ship was sent to Cyprus, another DP camp, where they lived in tents for 11 months, and that's where Rita was born in March of 1948. And they finally arrived in Israel just days before the state was declared on May 14th. And as the story goes, they were given rifles by Golda and sent north to a kibbutz Ein Zeitim on the Lebanese border. Emma was in the Haganah. At Ein Zeitim, you slept with your rifle under your mattress because there were Arab marauders who would come in the night. It was not a good place for Lili and for baby, for Rita, not quite 2 years old. So Lili went to live in the city, and David was born in Tiberias. Then the family moved south to be among the founders of kibbutz Nir Chen in the northern Negev region, not far from the Gaza Strip. Neil was the first boy born on that kibbutz. His Hebrew name, Nir, is taken from the kibbutz. David Ben-Gurion had promised to be the sandek at the bris of the first babies born in these Negev kibbutzim, which he really encouraged. But he couldn't make it. So he sent emissaries. Lili said, if Ben-Gurion couldn't come himself, we don't need you. And somebody from the family was a sandek, and Lili sent the emissaries away. Clearly, Lili was a pretty feisty lady, an attribute that probably got her through the Holocaust and those early pioneering days in Israel. It was a lifelong character trait, to which any of us who knew Lili can readily attest. As Sherry put it, she did not have many filters. She told you what was on her mind straight up. And I always appreciated that about her. It was part of her charm. That and the fact that she insisted upon speaking Hebrew to me, but I'm getting ahead of the story. In 1959, the family left Israel for the United States and settled in Philadelphia, where Emil worked with his brothers who were already here. A word about the family name is probably in order. In Europe, the family name was Pal. In Israel, they changed it to Peleg. And in the United States, to Paul, closer to the original Pal. One family, three names. Numbers tell a story. When I asked Neil if his mom worked outside the home, he said, no, she was Ima. Her role was to be mom. And in that role, she was always there. She prepared meals, she cleaned. Her house was always neat. She kept and managed the family finances. She was good at it. And I pressed Neil for a bit more about what his mom was like, and he put it this way. I'm grateful my parents lived past my teens. And then he added, I think my brother may have given them even more of a run. Rita has her own stories. But what becomes clear is that Lili was a real presence as a wife, homemaker, and mom. It is also telling that Rita and Neil attended Gratz College for Jewish Studies, and David probably would have as well had he not gone off to Ohio State. I already noted that Lili was pretty good with the family finances, and that meant that she and Emma were able to save some money and travel a bit when they retired. There were, of course, trips to Israel, But they found special enjoyment in spending time in Aruba, where they returned often enough to receive a citation from the mayor. They lived a quiet and comfortable life here in Cherry Hill for many years. When Emil passed away in 2011, there was a definite change in Lili, a sadness that she couldn't or wouldn't shake. She went to the cemetery daily, for as long as she could. She would spend time talking to Emil. She kept his marker clean herself, and the stones left to indicate visits in order. To be sure, Lili remained feisty in her interactions. If anything, what few filters she had previously diminished with time. She could be blunt, but many people at the Westin still found her charming, and she did little things that were truly endearing. She would be the first one to breakfast and put out the placemats for everybody and then collect them after the meal. She also picked up and distributed circulars from Walgreens Pharmacy. These people need to get a good deal on their medications, she would say. And she was personally offended when CVS moved into the neighborhood. To fill her time, she enjoyed crosswords and jigsaw puzzles, bingo, and TV. And she maintained a quirky sense of humor. When people came to visit her, she would throw them off guard by saying, "Can you believe it? I'm pregnant." She did that to Rabbi Peltz just a couple weeks ago when he visited her in hospice. And I think that her friends prepared notes that said at the end, "P.S. I'm not pregnant." One last thing to note, butterflies. She told a story about Auschwitz. Obviously, the concentration camp was a colorless, dark place, no life, a stench of death. But then one day, she saw a butterfly, and she was about to catch it when her friends stopped her. "Don't," they said, "you might injure it." So she let it go. A sign of freedom. 2 weeks later, they were liberated. And for the last 20 years or so, Lili's collected butterflies. Probably too many to count. Pictures, ceramic figures, designs on dishes, clothes, an umbrella, a shower curtain given by a friend, and even a COVID mask with butterflies, which Neil wore when we met a couple of days ago. Neil, you said it was a tribute to your mom. What number could express the meaning of those butterflies? What's the numerical coefficient of the metaphor of those fluttering wings of freedom? A life that was marked so early on by a number that was a symbol of suffering and loss gave way to a life in which there was love, marriage, family, friendships, and an appreciation of brightness and hope symbolized by butterflies. Whatever the difficulties of her past, the sadness at losing Emil, the illness of these last months, Lili has been liberated. Her soul is as free as that butterfly. May your memories of her resilience, her humor, her feisty spirit, and all that made her Ima be a source of strength for all the days and years to come. We rise for final prayer. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Lili Paul, who has gone to her eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the kind, caring, and loving deeds that she performed in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal with you, O Lord, as it is in the bond of memory with all who are here. You, O Lord, are her portion. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen. Be seated for a moment, please.
We have the pallbearers, please. And we would ask you to rise once more, please.
For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather, a time to embrace and a time to refrain. A time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to let go, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak.
so many
Somebody got that bottle of water up here.
Wait for you to move on.
What's that?
I'm gonna wait for you to move.
You guys are gonna move without me.
Thanks, it's on out, you're good.
What's that?
We're still fine, okay, I'll check it out. Yeah, run to the office, yeah, I'll make, directions.
Yeah.